All right, so you've promoted sacramental prep, confirmation prep in your parish. You've got young people who have signed up. Maybe you've had an information night for parents. You've got all the lessons scheduled in your parish calendar. And now we get to actually doing it, delivering this program here. We get to having the 10 in-person lessons. So we want to do a brief walk through one of the lessons there. But first, maybe we want to talk about what resources we want to have on hand. Our parishes vary greatly in size and in resources available to them. So at a minimum, what you're going to need is in the space where you're going to deliver your confirmation prep, you're going to need a television and a DVD player and the DVDs that come with Chosen. So that's kind of the minimum. Now, maybe your parish has some more resources there. Maybe you've got some Wi-Fi in your hall. That's fine as well. My recommendation, if you're playing the videos from an online source, is get an offline copy. You have a backup because Wi-Fi will fail just when you need it most. So the minimum, a television, DVD player, and the videos, the DVD videos that go along with Chosen. But there's nothing wrong if you've got an electronic copy of the videos, that's fine as well. If you're using a projector instead of a TV, that's fine as well. Having Wi-Fi in your hall or in your space where you're delivering this isn't necessary. It could be helpful, but it's not a must. You're going to want to have some resources for the students and the leaders. The students, of course, they each should have one of the student workbooks. And the leaders, you'll want at least one copy of the Leader's Guide there, really. The Leader's Guide has some tips for those who are presenting. It has the discussion questions for the small groups. And it has an overview for each lesson as well, so that your team can be ready. There's also a director's guide that you might want to get. The director's guide has some activities that you can use to add and illustrate and highlight points in each of the in-person lessons as well. So the director's guide is a helpful resource too. The must is a student workbook for each candidate and at least one leader's guide. That's the must. The director's guide can be a very helpful resource there. It doesn't have to be a must though, just depending on your own setting.
So it's really good to be looking at the tech in advance. Just make sure, have your videos set up. And in thinking of that, I'm thinking of what is the environment. Oftentimes, I think we can get so caught up in worrying about the content of what we're going to say that we get a little bit, we kind of forget about the environment, the atmosphere that this is all happening in. And it's actually really, really important. Kind of try and picture yourself. You're in grade 7, maybe grade 8, and you're walking into a space that you don't know, filled with people that you don't know, to do something that you know nothing about. This is a really challenging and sometimes emotionally charged time for these young people. And so trying to create an environment that is safe, that is comfortable, that is welcoming and relaxed, that they will feel comfortable opening up in and exploring these faithful topics in. Some considerations that you can think of is lighting. Nothing too crazy. Harsh fluorescents are not necessarily the vibe, so more natural lighting or even nice lamps for a bit more of a warm ambience. Try and make the space cozy and inviting. Let's say you only have your parish hall and it's huge and you only have 10 students. Pick one part of the parish hall and just set up like in the one corner and have everything over there so that the rest of the space is just kind of like off to the side, instead of having this huge cavernous space for the kids to have to walk through. Other things that you want to consider is small group setups. We're going to talk a little bit more in a second about how to arrange your small groups, who to put where, that kind of thing. But a general rule of thumb is you'll want to have one table per small group and have enough seating around each table for the leader who's going to be leading that small group, as well as the students. This might sound like a bit much already, and you might think, well, the important thing is the content. And I'm telling you, this makes such a difference for the youth, for their experience. When we are inviting them in to take part of this process, we're inviting the whole of them, and we're inviting them to come as they are. And so having a really welcoming experience, a really warm, relaxed environment. Some other parts of the environment that I can't understate enough is how you are approaching it. Your mindset and your attitude towards things as a leader, as a catechist, is really going to shine through. So something that I say, whether it's just you running it or whether you have a team of 10 or more people behind you, the important thing is to make sure to greet each parent and student as they come in and to actually speak with them even before the session starts. You might have a keener who shows up 15 or 20 minutes before the session starts. Don't just let them sit there on their phone for 15 to 20 minutes. Talk to them, interact with them. This is a great chance to get to know what is important in their life, what is affecting them right now. What do they think about? Who are their friends? What hobbies are they interested in? What plans do they have for the weekend? Come up with a couple different conversation starters that you can use in that instance of that kind of awkward time in between the doors have opened and we're starting the session. And that in-between space is not just dead space. It's really important for establishing relationships. And that will make the students feel like there's an authentic connection. They'll feel safer to open up, and you'll just have a better time because you're not just sitting there either. So that's an important thing, is use that time to interact with students and parents, and don't just hide in the back until it's time to come out and present. Other important things is the consideration of how do you arrange small groups. It's an age-old question. How do we figure out who goes into what small groups? My general guidelines that I've found that work really well is, first of all, to divide boys and girls. Again, this is all considering like size of group. I would say if you have 6 or fewer students, you're just doing one small group, and we call that large group discussion. If you have more students than that, it's an opportunity to potentially divide and to have a leader in each small group, an adult who's been trained, watched these videos, and who's ready to present these sorts of things. So have at least one leader per small group, and generally I would say divide into boys and girls, and then further from there, I usually just randomize it, honestly. I will pray over the list of students who've registered, and then I will just divide them up and I will let my leaders know in advance that they're going to be having their own small group at their own table. So if you have 4 small groups, you might have 2 boys small groups and 2 girls small groups, and you'll have each of your leaders sitting at one of those tables, hopefully interacting with the students as they've walked in, to just create, on the whole, this very warm and welcoming environment where the students are being interacted with. And at first it might take a while for them to open up. That just happens to be the way that this age range typically works. But eventually they will come to find that they feel more comfortable knowing that their small group leader is there, and being able to be there with their friends and people that they recognize after a while.
As they arrive, because we know some arrive early and often your start time is delayed by about 5 minutes, maybe consider having a greeter at the door who is dedicated to making sure each person who comes in has a warm welcome and knows where to go. You might want to have some music playing in the background as they arrive. You can get on Spotify, you can get free Christian music playlists there to play in the background. Maybe you want to have a game going as they arrive, and while you're waiting for them to arrive there, they can build relationships with one another in your space in that way, and with your team, with maybe some games that get to know one another that way too. Otherwise, it's very easy for them to be uncomfortable and just turn to their phone or their devices and start to wall themselves off. So that opening time, that first few minutes when they arrive, while you're waiting for everyone to finally get there, that can be an important part of preparing for confirmation, of just setting the tone on how things will go.
So at this point, you might be noticing a bit of a common theme between what we're telling you for running a session is preparing in advance. So important. Being ready to hit the ground running as students are coming in. Running your tech in advance. Actually play through the video. Have it waiting in the background so that you don't have to take the time to put in the DVD, turn it on, set it up. It's already paused right at the beginning of the video. It's ready to go, and you just need to hit play. These are all important things. Another important thing is reviewing the curriculum guide, and especially the leader's guide. This is a really important resource. It has all sorts of guidelines on the sides of each page that you can look through, as well as right here, this green box you might be able to see, is a discussion prep guide. So for each of the weeks, they give you a discussion prep guide that gives you some helpful hints, helpful tips, things to take note of specific to that week and that lesson. So some of the topics that might be a little more difficult for candidates to digest, they give you time to think about that. Tips for beginning of the year versus end of the year sessions. These are all important things, so definitely make sure that you and any small group leaders have access to these books and look at it well in advance so that you are comfortable and confident with the materials. They also provide you a leader's overview at the beginning of each lesson, as well as a taking it home section at the end of each of the lessons, which goes over key terms, kind of summarizes everything, and even gives a few fun facts. These are things that the students have access to as well, and they may or may not read them, but it is important for all your leaders to be reading this because it will help provide them with consistent answers across the board. We don't want each small group to be getting a vastly different experience. We want every student who comes in to have a full and rich understanding of the topic when they're leaving. And that starts with you as leaders being well prepared in advance. So make sure to always take some time throughout the week or weeks beforehand. Gather your supplies, touch base with your small group leaders, and make sure that everyone is on the same page and well informed about the topic.
You might want to also review regularly the overall curriculum guide that's being made available to all parishes. So it has an outline for which chapters of Chosen will be covered at each lesson, and it has a minute-by-minute overview of how a 90-minute lesson can go. From the welcome to the prayer, all the way to the closing prayer and parent pickup at the end. So it can be done in an hour and a half, each of these lessons here. And there is a guide that gives a bit of a minute-by-minute overview of how a lesson can go.
Okay, so we're going to now run through minute by minute what a typical session would look like. So we're going to be reviewing session 2, which is lesson 5 in the Leader's Guide. If you have your Leader's Guide already and your curriculum guide, you'll be able to follow along with this. So after we have, greeted everyone, they've walked in, we start with a welcome. This is a really good time for you to review any housekeeping notes, let them know where the bathroom is and what the process is for needing to go to the bathroom. Do they have to raise their hand? Do they have to talk to a small group leader? Can they just go because it's only a group of 5 people? Whatever you think makes the most sense. But letting people know these sorts of things in advance will, again, add to the comfort. So that can be a quick note in your welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really glad to see you again this week. This week we're going to be going through lesson 5, and I'm really excited because we're talking about who is Jesus. Not only just who is he, his name, but who is he to you. And so we're going to be reviewing that. If you all want to join me with the opening prayer, that's on page 35 of your student workbook. So let's start that now. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
You can also at this time ask the candidates if there's anything they want to pray for as well. They may have sick family members, they may have tests or tournaments or things that are weighing on them, and this is a time to include them and have them pray for one another. And they may not be used to praying, they may not know how to pray, and the recited prayer is wonderful, that's great, but even to take a short moment to ask them what would they like to pray for and include that as part of it. They may have nothing to say at all, especially if they're nervous. That's all right. It's the invitation.
Mm-hmm. And providing that invitation throughout the weeks, you will find that things do tend to start to open up later on in sessions. And so that's important. Even starting with a basic prayer like the Our Father, any kid who's gone through Catholic school is going to be familiar with this prayer. But it is important to kind of, at that time, not like you're doing espionage, but be looking around and be observant, be open to what you might notice about the students. Are there some students who don't say the words at all? Are there some students who are very enthusiastically saying the words? Are there students who are kind of looking around and making a joke of the time? These are just important things to note so you can gauge the temperature of your group. Even right now at the very beginning, we were not even 2 minutes into the session. You can already tell so much about what you as a leader can be doing to support these students better. We also have on this page a kickoff question. So again, this is all, take all of these things. This is curriculum that has many different resources and moving parts, if something isn't going to fit into your time frame or you're not feeling it, whatever it happens to be, these are parts that can be adjusted. So we're just going through everything that you could do in the session. At the bottom of your page, underneath the opening prayer, you'll see there is a question. It's a little prompt. It just says, finish the sentence below, briefly explain your choice. I wonder if Jesus blank. So I'm going to take 20 seconds. Don't talk with your friends around you. You don't need to know. But just write down in silence, I wonder if Jesus, how you would finish that sentence. And don't worry, this isn't going to be graded. There's no right or wrong. Just in your own thoughts. Okay, so I'll give you 20 seconds and you can do that. Again, encouraging and always setting boundaries before you go into these things. Because if you just tell the students, okay, just write this thing, they're going to turn to their friend and ask what their friend is writing, and then the whole table is going to all write the same answer because they want to be united, that kind of thing. So make sure to set those ground rules. If you don't want students talking to each other during a particular activity or period of time, let them know, not in a harsh way, just as a, hey guys, just a reminder, we're not going to be having side conversations right now. And that's an important thing because in this age group, they're just going to forget. They're excited about this time. They're nervous. So they're going to do some wacky things sometimes. And you just kind of roll with it. All right, guys. Thank you for that. That was a great conversation that we just had. And now we're going to flip page 36, to the dive-in. The dive-in is a great little portion. It's just a little story to kind of set the tone and bring us all together on what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to read through the dive-in. I won't do that right now for this session, but you would read through the dive-in. I would personally recommend you yourself as the leader reading, unless you know for sure that the kids in your group are very strong readers. Sometimes that can be a painful or even embarrassing experience for the kids to have to read out loud in front of all their peers. So if you're going to have them read out loud, make sure that it's on a volunteer-only basis, and you can also scrap that in later sessions if you find that you don't really have a lot of strong readers as well. So I wouldn't force kids to be reading out loud during these sessions because you don't want to put them on the spot. They do that a lot during school sometimes. They are forced to give answers or forced to... We don't want any of that here. The idea is, if you're looking for what the atmosphere should be around all this, have it feel more like a youth group and less like a classroom. And that will help open the students up a bit more to this experience as well. So we read through the dive-in. That's great. Now we're going to watch segment 1. So each of the lessons has 3 video segments, which are followed by discussion questions. Discussion questions are suggested at the bottom of your Leader Guide page. I would say be prepared to only really get through 1 or 2. And on the other hand, sometimes you might have a not so chatty group and you might need even more questions. So sometimes even a simple, what stood out to you from the video, might be a good enough start for these small groups. And sometimes some of these questions can be a little bit difficult for the students to know what you're asking. So feel free to look ahead again at these discussion questions if you think they might be a little bit too much to digest for your group. I'm not saying dumb it down, but you might try and change the verbiage so that it makes a bit more sense for a grade 7 student. Bearing in mind that this confirmation curriculum was originally designed for grade 10 students as the target audience. So just keeping that in mind, that you may need to make 1 or 2 adjustments through the words that you're using, or just factor in that I'm going to have to explain this question or change the wording in advance.
So this is the time when small groups come into play. So after they watch the video, they will stay in smaller groups rather than the large room. If you've got more than 8 candidates, you'll break them into their small groups, and they will talk about these questions in their smaller groups. So each leader should have a copy of the questions there, as well as some of the tips. If they don't have the whole leader's guide, then at least a printout, a copy of the questions that they will be talking about in their smaller groups. And sometimes even with the leader's guide, that's handy because our small group leaders aren't flipping to what page in the book is it at. It's on a card or on a single sheet of paper for them there. And that is important. You don't have to get through all of the discussion questions. We just want to have the time of discussion and sharing among the young people. We don't have to get through all the questions as though it's a quiz to get through. Another place you can put the questions on, if you're using PowerPoint, is put them up on the screen. The questions up there, so at any moment, any of them, leaders or the young people, can take a glance up and see what the question is in writing. Just people learn in different modes.
Other important notes that I might make to you as somebody who's done a lot of small group leading. One is, don't be afraid of silence. It can feel really awkward when you ask a question and nobody answers. And the students are just like looking around or looking down at the ground. And you might feel the need to fill that silence. You might feel the need to start instructing, reviewing, or even calling on people by name. Anybody fill the silence. But silence doesn't necessarily mean that there's no response. For some children, they need the time to really think through their answer, or they might be just having an answer and feeling too nervous to share and wondering if one of their buddies is going to say something similar to them. So always encourage sharing, but I would say never force. And sometimes it's good to just let the question sit and simmer for a minute. Now, when you do have a little bit of feedback, it can also be good as a leader to give your own answer to it, but not to get too grandiose. So if something stood out to you from the video, you can say, yeah, I actually really like that part when Chris mentioned about, the differences between these different names of Jesus and how that relates to this topic. Did any of the names stand out to you? That's a really good way to continue further conversation, but also to make sure that you're not oversharing yourself as a leader. Because as the leader, it's not about you, it's creating an environment where the students feel comfortable sharing. And they're not necessarily going to feel comfortable sharing if their leader never opens up and is only ever asking them rote questions. So try and have a little bit of give and take. Remember, it's a conversation, not an interrogation.
After you've done the video and you've had some time in small groups, you might have an activity. These candidates, they've been maybe sitting in a classroom all day or all week. And if you have the director's guide, there's some great suggestions there. If something, and if you don't have it, you can come up with something else. But this is a great way to break up the pattern of just sitting to watch and talk.
Keep in mind that with the activities, they will give you the time in the lesson that this is best done. And this is all also suggested in our session outlines in the curriculum guide. Of course, you can do things differently than what's suggested exactly in the curriculum guide, but we've tried to fashion the curriculum guide to have the best possible combination of, small group time, activity time, and create a really good flow for the session that's going to be not too overwhelming for the students, but not too underwhelming and filled with dead space and awkward silences and small groups and stuff. So, for example, for activity 1 for lesson 5, they have a Jesus poster. And they tell you the best audience for this is grades 7 to 9, so it's perfect for this age range. They give you the materials you're going to need. So make sure in advance of the lesson, again, it's important to be looking in advance. You'll need 1 poster board or large sheet of paper and at least 1 set of markers. Then they give you directions. So you're going to give each student each small group their drawing materials. You're going to explain that they have a certain amount of time to create a depiction of who Jesus is. Each group's poster should, using text and visual images, answer the question, who is Jesus Christ? You can even have them write that question at the top of their poster board to help them bear it in mind as they're creating. Once the time ends, have each group send up 1 or 2 people, or the whole group as a whole, to present their poster to the other groups, explaining their choices of images and characteristics that reflect the person of Jesus. You take note of what traits they emphasize and perceive about Jesus. Again, it's very helpful to just be aware and be taking in notes about their perspectives. Not so that you can correct them or so that you can challenge them, but just so that you as a leader, again, can be providing the best type of support that they need. If everyone is praying, 2 times a day and goes to Mass every Sunday, you're going to present things a little bit differently and be able to go in a different direction in these conversations than if the students are CNE Catholics or haven't been in a church since their baptism. This is going to be a different type of conversation, But the activities are really fantastic, so we really encourage you, get a copy of the director's manual, really enter in on these activities. We've also, in the curriculum guide, we've also laid out a little supply list next to any activities or sections that require you to use things. So if you need pencils or pens, if you need a basket, or if you need There's one session where you might need some fake fruit when we talk about the fruits of the Spirit, all sorts of things like that. So you'll have plenty of time and plenty of heads up to gather these materials and make sure that you have them ready to go at the start of the session.
So that repeats about 3 times over. You have the video, you've got small group discussion, and hopefully some kind of activity to break things up. And you'll do that for segment 1, and for segment 2, and for segment 3. Now, if you still have time left to fill in your time, that should fill up almost all the time. Mm-hmm. But should you have extra time to fill, then on the next page in the same lesson, you have a section called To the Heart, with a bit of a story and one more discussion question there. So if you do need to fill in more time and you're not quite sure what with, there is the To the Heart. Mm-hmm. Other adaptations you might make is to read the life of the saint for that chapter there too. That's connected to the lesson. Or there's the challenge of the week. You can assign the young people to do one of these 3 challenges of the week in the upcoming, between your lesson and the upcoming lesson there too. So there's lots of material in the book that you can use to make adaptations to your lesson, to fill in the time for your sessions there. Whatever works best for you.
Yeah, this curriculum is so rich. There's so much that you can offer. So definitely feel free to kind of change up, add in what you need, where it fits. That's the great thing about this whole curriculum is there's so much material that you're never going to run out of things to do. So again, becoming familiar with the program so that you can use those things and pull them out in an instance where you might need them. Once you've completed the segment videos and small groups or activities, whatever's requested, there's a little time, just reminders at the end. So that's when I like to remind students about sponsors, about upcoming either church events or youth group events, or things that are like events or requirements that are coming up in the program itself. So if I've set the, as Father mentioned in the previous video, if I've set the requirement date for the end of March break, my session before March break that I'm having is a really good reminder time to be like, hey, your due date is in a couple weeks. I'm not going to see you until these things have already been due. So make sure that you're working on these. And sometimes I even encourage the students to write these reminders on a Post-it or on a blank piece of paper if they have one laying down. I would have students writing them in the back of their student workbook. That's totally fine. They can make the workbook their own. And there are notes sections for the students at the end of each of their chapters as well, which is a good place for them to jot those reminders down. You can also encourage the students to look ahead at the lesson that's going to be done in the next weeks to come. So we just finished lesson 5. It's really great. Next week next time that we get together, we're going to be going through lesson 8. So if you want to, you can take a look ahead at those, or you can look at lessons 6 and 7, which we won't be covering here in class, but are still filled with some really great information for you. Just a simple reminder like that to help keep them engaged in between sessions as well is really helpful. And then, of course, to finish up with the closing prayer, they do have a themed closing prayer at the end of each of the lessons, which I love to use, or you can just finish with a little spontaneous prayer. That's a really good time, too, to bring in those intentions if you weren't able to fit them in at the beginning with the opening prayer. And then you have parent pickup time, which is also, remember to be speaking with the parents, let them see your face, interact with them, not just through emails and reminders, but also talk to the parents, try and relate to them as much as you can, because the parents are the driving force. Kids in grade 7 can't get themselves to these sessions on their own. It's really the parents who are bringing their kids along, for better or for worse. And so to encourage those parents, interact with them, and just make sure to say, hi, so-and-so did really great in their session today. We had a lot of fun. Yeah, we talked about who Jesus was, and they had some really insightful answers. I was really impressed. Anything positive you can say about the kids is going to go over really well with the parents. I can say that as a parent as well.
Well, great. So that's a quick run through of a lesson there, of a 90-minute lesson. Hopefully that's helpful for you. But again, if questions come up, for pastors, deanery meetings are a great place to bring those questions up. And for anyone else, you might want to talk with neighboring parishes to see what they're doing in their confirmation prep. It's going to look different from parish to parish, but we can share with one another, learn from one another, and through this, make sure our candidates for confirmation are well prepared before they encounter the bishop there in the ritual of confirmation. Once again, I thank you for your time in helping our young people get ready for confirmation. It's an important time in their lives and in the lives of their family. So thank you much for dedicating your time and your energy and your love towards this great endeavor.